Hi everyone, it's Lucy again from Travelling Artist, and this is the second half of my bullet journal flick through. I've already been through this first half of it, and I've got another half to go through. Maybe not quite as much, but there's a lot more to talk about, I think, in this portion, as I got more and more into bullet journaling at this point. So if you haven't seen the first video already, I'll link it somewhere on the screen, and please watch that first if you're interested in bullet journaling and seeing what it's all about, and wanting to get inspired for different layouts and designs and drawings and things. So I'm just going to go straight into it. So again, as you have seen with my first video, I've continued with this monthly goals to-do list kind of thing. And then as you're writing your daily or weekly to-do list, you can just refer back to this and then transfer it across and know what you want to get done weekly. I think it's good to just sort of brain dump everything you need to do, and then as you come into each day, you can just sort of separate out the tasks, you know, take one step at a time, one day at a time, and it really helps you mentally like deal with challenges and deal with tasks that you need to do. It really works for me. Again, like last month, I've drawn out a calendar, but mainly I just write events on here. I don't write things I need to do, it's just events. So I've got that there. I've got another habit tracker here, and I experimented with doing these sort of graphs, which, as I said before, really works well for me because I'm a visual person, and I just wanted to experiment with seeing how a line graph would work. So I've tracked here my reading, like how many hours, or I think it's like minutes. So I've got 10 minutes here, 20 minutes, 30, 40, 50. So how many minutes I spent reading. It's all just, you know, estimated, it's not specific at all. And then how many hours sleep, and then I can see by looking at this graph how many hours sleep I got, and I think this works really well. I'd rather do this at a larger scale rather than doing a habit tracker with the boxes. I just think this works in my brain more looking back at it. And I also started to do a daily dozen at this point, which is, I think it's Dr. Greger, and it's kind of like how you get your 5 a day, but except the daily dozen is including grains, beans, fruit, veg, flax seeds, and a few other things, I think. And it's kind of the same thing. You just sort of check off if you've got a certain amount of something, and it just makes sure that you stay on track with your health. And I like it because it doesn't count calories, or it doesn't encourage any kind of restrictive eating. It just allows you to tick off a certain food group, and that's what I like about it. It's not like this MyFitness app, which I think if you're not in the right mindset, or if you have a past of disordered eating or something, it can get you a bit obsessive with what kind of food you're eating and things like that. So I really recommend Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen app for anyone who's wanting to keep track of their health. So on the next 2 pages are just notes which I made for a PowerPoint I was doing for university. Some more notes here. Here is my first weekly spread. Again, it's the same layout as I did in January. I started to document as well what books I was reading, and each box, each square here represents a chapter, and then I fill it out for every chapter that I read. And I've documented here that I went to the Hepworth Gallery in Yorkshire Sculpture Park. Again, it's nice to just add in these little memories here and there throughout your bullet journal. I think it's really nice. It makes it more meaningful. Another weekly spread. Nothing new to comment on really. There's some quotes around here that you can see. One that says good enough is good enough, and then at the bottom it says concentrate on the moments, don't strive for perfection, which I think is solid advice for anyone out there who deals with perfectionist thinking, or you know, never feels like they're good enough kind of thing. So I like to add these little reminders here and there, although I usually find quotes like super cheesy. To be honest, it's just an excuse to practice handwriting. And in my to-do list, I've just got make art here with an exclamation point, because obviously this week I was determined to make lots of art. Again, like I said I'm not a quote person, but here we are, a double page spread of a quote. Again, I more did this just because I like to practice handwriting. I was that kid at school who just really enjoyed handwriting lessons. I think that's kind of continued on until my 20s. This page is titled My Ideal Morning Routine. I heard about this thing on Tina's channel called Overall Adventures about miracle mornings, and there's a book written about it. And this is just the start of me trying to get a solid morning routine organised, because I think it's really important to like start your day off right and start off on the right foot kind of thing. So this is me trying to write down what my ideal morning would be like, and then after this I begin to work out habits that would build towards making me a better morning person. Okay, so this is a book that was lent to me surprisingly by my tutor. That's the great thing about being a fine art student. You have like these really honest and down to earth tutors. She gave me this book called Fuck It. And the point of the book is to read it. It's a very short book, it's just got illustrations in it. You read it and then you pass it on to someone else who you think needs it at that time. So I have passed it on to a friend, and hopefully she's going to pass it on to someone else. And we decided to write our names in the back of the book as well, so as it goes on, people can see how many people are in the same position who need this kind of message to come to them. So I wrote down notes from the book, obviously because I passed it on. I wanted to remember what it said, and it's quite funny just to flick back through. Okay, so here is an idea I got from someone's channel. I can't remember the name, but I'll put it on the screen and I'll link it down below. And she does a lot of journaling kind of videos, and she had this idea to draw your current me and your future me. I haven't drawn the future me, but I did decide to draw current me, just because I wanted to sort of document how I feel about myself at this time right now. So maybe when I look back, I can be like, okay, this is what I felt about myself when I was in my 20s. And I guess you could say like, well, you'll just remember what you were like in your 20s, but it's nice to sort of read it from your own handwriting and see it physically documented somewhere. It's kind of like when people keep diaries and they read back through, and it's just entertaining and interesting, and there's so many things that you forget about. And then here I started to write a gratitude log. So every day you write down 2 things that you're grateful for, or however many that you want. I decided to go for 2. Some days I missed it, but yeah, I think this is a very positive thing to do, to really recognise what privileges you have. I think to write down things that you're grateful for is a really positive thing, and I encourage everyone to do it. This is kind of a mishmash of things. These are just notes here. More notes, kind of a brain dump thing going on here. Okay, so at this point on a Saturday I decided to start doing this time log thing, which is documenting how I was spending my time. I knew this wasn't going to be a permanent thing, I just wanted to sort of experiment with it. But I already knew from the start, like, there's no way I'm going to keep up this. So I kind of categorised it into sleep, and then at first I categorised it into morning and night routine, but then as I went on I just sort of combined that into like me time, personal time kind of thing, and then social and events, and then also like studio time and working in general. So then those are the like 4 things, let's say, that you're spending your time doing. It's just nice to see it visually, how much time you're spending in each area. As you can see, as I turn on to the next page, I did this over a week, and then I counted up how many hours I was spending working, socialising, me time. And this was more just like a personal experiment. I wasn't crazy obsessed with it, but I just was curious to see how much time I was spending actually working. Because often we can feel like we don't have any time, but when you do something like this, you realise there is time in the day to work on projects and work on, long-term goals and things like that. So I'm just going to turn over to the next page. So it's the same layout as before, except I've added this time log thing in, and it took me ages to figure out how to do it properly. I just sort of used coloured pens to dot the hour of which I was spending time doing something. So the orange represents sleep, so I was sleeping until 6, but then, I don't know, it just took me ages to kind of get the hang of it, and I kept making mistakes. But I ended up working out a better system as I went along. Again, I'm tracking my books here and social media. And then here is me moving into my Leuchtturm 1917, which I have here. This is just a quick brief through, but I need to start with that again. And then, okay, so I was on about the Miracle Morning. Part of the Miracle Morning routine that is suggested and recommended is to spend time in the morning writing down how you feel straight away. So here is an example where I tracked my weekly sort of overview of how I was spending my time. So I can see I spent a lot of time sleeping and a lot of time socialising and going to events, and very, very little time actually getting on with work. And it's ridiculous really when you look at it. So I guess it's a lesson learned to go into the next week to spend less time having fun and get on with your work. I have no regrets about this. I don't think it's ever time wasted to go to a social event and spend time with friends. I did struggle a lot with my university work this year to really get motivated, so this is why I've gone to these kind of lengths to keep on track with everything I was doing. So just to quickly show you what I've got in my new bullet journal, which I'm going to start working in again, is the Leuchtturm 1917, and it's the grey hardback Leuchtturm, and I love it. So I started out by putting in a calendar, which I didn't use that much because I tend to just use my phone or like a large visual calendar on a wall somewhere. I've also got my books to read and documentaries to watch. I need to transfer the documentaries from my other bullet journal into this actually. And then this is something unique. So I went into the month of March. I wanted to document the books I was reading, podcasts, documentary, TED Talks, and important, like poignant YouTube videos that I was listening to. Documentaries and podcasts are the main thing that influence my way of thinking, and they've really changed my lifestyle and the way I think. I wanted to sort of document it all in one place because then I could see at what time I started to think a certain way or something. I don't know. So anyway, I just wrote down the titles and went round in a circle, but I didn't finish doing that. So I've got my March goals, personal and work related, and then an events page as I did in my previous bullet journal. And then I've got a habit tracker here, which was mainly just to do with hair care and skincare and my mood as well. I started to document it in numbers rather than a grid format. So out of 10, I rated how good I was feeling. Mostly 9 and 10s and a few 7 and 8s in there, so that's really good. And then I've got a spending log, which I'm going to blur out. And then I've got a want list here. I'm going to put the cost of it and why I want it. And then I can see if it's a ridiculous thing that I don't actually need. And then I've got a weekly thing, which is very similar to the one in my previous bullet journal. Here's a gratitude log, and I did it in a visual kind of form. I've put like my first workshop, freedom to create, board games because I went to the board room, which is a bar in Hull where you can go and play board games while drinking. It's really cool. And then here I've started to document miracle mornings, which you can see better if I turn it round. So I've put wake up at 6 a.m. and then I can mark whether I did that or not. Brush teeth, wash face, meditate, stretch, affirmations, read 10 pages in a book. That was a goal I set myself. Journal, which is just to write in here in some kind of way. It doesn't have to be written and logging like in a diary form, but just anything. And then I put tidy room if I needed to, because I find that I'm more inclined to tidy up in the morning rather than late at night when I'm tired and I can't be bothered. And so here's just some different affirmations I wrote down, because apparently it's a thing that genuinely does change your mindset. I'm not all up on it yet, but I might get back into it and see if it does actually make an effect. Here's just some notes that I took from YouTuber Infinite Waters. I started watching some of his videos, and some of them are really, really interesting. Like, he has a very good attitude towards life, and I just found him very inspiring at this time. So here again is me logging the amount of time I spent doing things, more notes from Infinite Waters. and more weeklies. These are notes from a workshop before I did it, just little reminders for myself. Ooh. Here are some notes from a lecture. Here's when I got some new pens and I was experimenting with them, and I found that they did leak through, but there's a method, there's a little trick that I learned that can stop that from happening, and I'll share that with you one day. So yeah, there's a massive bleed through here, but I managed to fix that eventually. And then again, I've been documenting my time. It's a bit more neat and tidy with these new pens that I got. Some notes from my essay, and again logging times. You can see with this technique here that I used, it's not bled through at all. Again, just more weeklies. I've got quite a sad memory there actually. Just someone who we lost unfortunately on our course, and I've just put that he'll always be remembered in this little box here. Don't know what this is, I don't remember writing any of this. Oh, I've just done like a little self-help task thing, I guess, for myself that I just made up. I've just put what makes me unhappy and what makes me happy. I was obviously needing this at the time. More weeklies. Going into April with zero decoration. You can tell it's starting to fade out now. And then I started to do a little to-do list, but it's kind of drifted off. So I'm going to start again on these pages and get back into it, because I don't want to waste this full journal. I've got all of this, so yeah, I'll keep you updated with everything that I do in here. So that is it for my bullet journal flick throughs. This is everything that I've done ever in my bullet journals, and I really hope you enjoyed it and it became useful to you. I'm really actually tempted to just start afresh and rip some of these pages out, but I won't. Because it's not about being perfect. It's just about using it in the moment as and when you need it, and whatever you need to write down, you can just write it down, and it doesn't matter. There's no like preset system or way of organising it. Like you get in diaries where the layouts are already written out and you get a certain amount of room to write in. That's what I love so much about bullet journals. It's all completely up to you. And I forgot to mention this is actually a dot grid. I'll show you up close. I'll see if I can focus in on that. Oh, there you go. Dots. So you can easily draw lines on them and everything can be sort of in place. Whereas my other one, my other bullet journal was just blank pages, which can also work as well. Or you can get grid format ones. I'm just going to leave it there. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll keep you updated with any future things that I add to my bullet journal, like when I start to get back on track with it. I'm going to do some videos about some of the things I mentioned as I went through these journals in separate videos, so also let me know in the comments below if you have any particular questions, and if you haven't yet, find me on Instagram at Travelling Artist, and if you're interested in seeing my artwork, you can find me at Lucy Anna Artist on Instagram, and I also have a website which I'll link below. And in the meantime, just take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!